told you we have some good folks, right? Told you. And so, before we move on to our next presenter, I want to take a brief second on your program in the very back. There's a list of our Morehead Pride events happening this weekend. Of course, the 8th Memorial Quilt exhibit has been going on all week, and it will continue to go on up to the 8th. Morehead Pride Festival is happening October 7th tomorrow, right? Tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. We have the Pride Youth After Party turn up from 8 to 10 p.m. And then there's also the Morehead Pride After Party from 8 to midnight. So they do it a little better than the youth, 2 hours extra. So moving right on along with our program, I'd like to welcome John Parker, who serves as the Executive Director of AVOL. So give him a round of applause and welcome him to the podium.
Everybody, good afternoon. It's good to see everyone. There's a lot happening in this room right now. We have quilts, we have some amazing coming out stories, and it's very humbling. It's tough to share the stage with Mark Johnson. He is such a dynamic person. I've known him for many years. I was a graduate of Asbury College in Wilmore, Kentucky in 1989. Got a job at the local detox center that started the day after I graduated. And the first day I was there, a gentleman named Mark Johnson came to do our HIV education. So if you can imagine 1989 meeting Mark Johnson, he had a lot of hair. And he was probably one of the first gay people I had met. And in my own journey and my own coming out as well, it's just been wonderful people like him along the way who have kind of been a mentor to me. So I just appreciate everything that Mark shared with you today. I just feel like it's an honor today as well to be in Morehead, Kentucky. I wanted to just say that Morehead and Morehead Pride and this event, and hey Mark, I was just talking about you. This event and focusing on diversity, and I don't know if you all realize it or not, but I live in Lexington, but I also have a lot of connections statewide and nationally. But Morehead is on the map. Morehead is the epicenter of something big, and that's because something big happened here. And it has been noticed. I have to be honest that when I had conversations with the people from the Elton John AIDS Foundation out of New York City, we don't have a conversation when we don't talk about Morehead, Kentucky and the important things that are happening here. And there's many people in this room today that were a part of that demonstration, fight, showing us how it's done. I was just amazed and impressed. So every time I get to come back up here, I feel like I'm part of something bigger. And it's connected to the work that we do in Lexington with AVOL and HIV prevention and fairness and justice and everything else. And so just thank you for that. And then I want to comment also that it's also an honor and sometimes humbling and also sometimes difficult to share the stage with the HIV quilt. These are folks who paved the way and were living honest lives when I was unable to. And I look at the dates on there, and I look at people who died before I even came out. But I was living a life of being really afraid. And so I just am so honored to be in all of this that's happening in this room right now with you all. I just think it's appropriate, because we have the quilt here, that we just take a moment and have just a moment of silence in honor of the folks that we honor by seeing the quilt today. If you join me, please. And amen. Thank you. A couple things I want to share with you today. I feel like today is a day of good news. I have good news to share with you. I have exciting news to share with you. AVOL has been around for about 30 years. AVOL was created by the gay community in Lexington to take care of people who were dying and there was nobody else to help. 30 years later, we are still going strong, and I can encapsulate our work in one thing, and it's this. Does anyone know what this is?
Yes.
This is, can they hear me? Can they hear me? Okay, just stay close. Just so everyone can see. This is an HIV test. This is not a pregnancy test. Don't fear. This takes 20 minutes to get the results back. We can do this pretty much anywhere. And in 20 minutes time, we can help the person who is HIV negative learn ways for them to stay negative. And we can help the person who comes back HIV positive connect to medical care, services, housing services, anything that they need to get on the road to better health. And the good news today is that better health with HIV is possible. And so that is the work of AVOL, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. And it's this little tool that we try to get out as much as possible. This is actually the oral swab test. We also do a finger stick test that we actually use more often now. I like this one because I just don't want to stick people. But anyway, just wanted to share that with you. And just saying that the work that we do around HIV prevention and connecting people to care has been very strong in Lexington, but we haven't done a great job reaching out to Eastern Kentucky. AVOL serves 71 counties in central and eastern Kentucky. Rowan County is one of our counties, but because of the lack of funds and whatnot, we've had a hard time doing that over the years. But I have some announcements to make today, and I'm going to put the microphone back. I would like to introduce everybody to, this is called Health Education Network Kentucky, and this is AVOL's HIV prevention arm for Eastern Kentucky. So I'm proud that our very first, call it Hanky, Hanky event is tomorrow at Pride. We will have a mobile HIV testing unit on site all day tomorrow doing HIV testing for whoever needs them. So we're really excited. This was funded by the Elton John AIDS Foundation out of New York City. And this is our gift, and Elton John's gift, and I hope he comes to Kentucky soon to see us all. Elton John's gift to Kentucky. So let's, yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure he comes to work. It's magnetized. The other thing I wanted to point out to you is if you go to your iPhone and or Android app store and search HENKY, you will be able to download a phone app that looks like this, and resources are being added to this every day of where you can connect to HIV testing and prevention and services resources throughout all of Eastern Kentucky. So it's just beginning, but this is also funded by the Elton John AIDS Foundation. We have Health Education Network of Kentucky. And we're really excited that this phone app is going to help us spread the word better to connect people to services. And we're working with every resource that goes into this phone app. We're talking to them in advance to assess, how welcome are people going to be walking through these doors and accessing these types of services. And if we don't get the vibe we're looking for on that, we'll just keep working with them. But we want some really great resources for people to be able to connect with. So that's very exciting. Let's see where I was on this. I have so many props. I wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that last week there was big news that came out of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Did you hear it? Did anyone hear it? Okay. What did you hear?
Is it that if you're undetectable, you cannot transmit?
If you're undetectable for HIV, it is highly unlikely, I'm changing the wording, that you can transmit that virus to another person. Now this is huge. This is huge. And in fact, there's been about 50 or so groups across the country for the last year and a half that have been advocating the CDC to take this position. I am really glad to see the CDC take and make a decision on that. I'm also very much aware that I think it's important that we put all of that into context. And what that means is, for the person living with HIV, the goal for the person living with HIV is to have as little of the virus living in their body as possible. And that happens through consistent medical care, access to an affordable medical care, and access to affordable medications. And they're called ATRs, ARTs, antiretroviral medications. Those medications that have been developed over the past 30 years work with the body to reduce, actually prevent the replication of HIV in the body. And so this is very exciting. This is exciting for couples who may have one partner who's HIV positive and one partner who's not, to know that there's more to this story than we had to block it. You know, that it makes sense. A little bit of virus, you're just less infectious. A lot of virus, you're more infectious. A little bit of the virus, you feel pretty good. A lot of the virus, you're not feeling good at all. And so it just makes sense. And so my message for you all here today is, a good day at AVOL is when we do a test and the person comes back HIV positive because they did not know their status. And now we have the opportunity to connect them to the care that they need to be well. And hopefully to continue to work on stopping the spread of HIV throughout, to other people. And so I've had people say to me, well, a good day at AVOL would be you have a lot of tests and they all come back negative. I'm like, well, those are good because we want to keep people negative, and we do a lot of education, and I've got free condoms out here because I can't show up anywhere without free condoms. People judge me. But the opposite to that is, now that we know what medical attention and medical medications can do, it has become that much more critical to find and help people know their status. And that is so in the rural areas of eastern Kentucky. We had a big outbreak of HIV infection identified in Indiana about 1.5 years ago. And that was a wake-up call. 8 of the 10 most vulnerable counties for HIV infection are in eastern Kentucky. And so that was one reason why we said to the Elton John AIDS Foundation is, we've got to do more. There's only prevention going on in Lexington and Louisville. We need to do more. And so we've got a coalition across the region. We've been to Hazard, we've been to Clay County, we've been to McKee. We're spending time at the needle exchange programs, the drug courts, anywhere we can. We'll pull up in a parking lot at a church and put up a sign and do HIV testing. So we are just working more and more to get out and be available to the people of the entire region to access this type of service. So I'm very excited about all of that. If anyone is interested in connecting with us in our van, please let me know. We would love to share that with you. I've brought little mini magnets about Hanky. I think that's hilarious, Hanky. When you search this on the app, it's going to come up with a Hanky code app first. Y'all know what the Hanky code is? Anyone? Yeah, okay. That's going to be first. Scroll down a little bit, you'll find it. The issue of access to health care, I think that is very important. I don't care what you call it, whether it's Obamacare or affordable whatever, I don't care. I just want people to be able to have access to that. It's that access to the health care that has actually helped us make differences in how we approach treatment for HIV, and in turn, approach prevention. The factors, the limiting factors around accessing healthcare continue to be inadequate healthcare systems, poverty, racism, denial, stigma, discrimination, and criminalization. And in the names of the people on the quilt, it's really time to move past all of these things, have these types of conversations so that we can just get real and, you know, and just find a way to find solutions. Just a brief word on inclusion. I think it's, if we take a look around the room today and say, who's not here? Or if everybody in the room looks like you, this should be where our concern is. And so I think we keep having those types of conversations. I'll close with AVOL for almost 30 years has been a place where people could go when they had no place else to turn. How are you opening yourself to welcome those who have nowhere else to turn? So what kind of questions do y'all have for me? Yes.
I wanted to ask, what impact has the opioid problem in Eastern Kentucky had on HIV and AIDS?
That is the major factor on why those 8 out of 10 counties are most vulnerable. And that's a nationwide statistic. 8 of the 10 most vulnerable counties nationwide are in Eastern Kentucky. And it's the opiate crisis. It's hepatitis C is another indicator. We also do hepatitis C testing out of our mobile unit, and we're also expanding to do other STDs. And the other thing is, used to be a long time ago in prevention, we'd say, well, we don't care if you do drugs, we just want you to be safe. I kind of care now, because people are dying. And I think that it's a different type of thing. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes?
Are you doing any work with PrEP and PEP?
Absolutely, and thank you for bringing that up. PrEP is another prevention method, a little pill that you take, and it has been demonstrated over and over and over again to prevent infection of HIV. What we try to do is we are building relationships with physicians who we know will prescribe. It's tough because there's a lot of education that comes with that. Also, a lot of education around who will pay for it. And I think that's another big issue. There is a state, I don't have the information with me today, but the state of Kentucky has a website where you can, actually, you have to get somebody at the state to look stuff up for you, but they will actually connect you to all of the pharmaceutical-free programs and help you apply for those if you're in need. So there is a clearinghouse, a centralized clearinghouse for where the freebies are, and we try to stay up to date with that as well. But PrEP is big, treatment as care is big, and then our traditional condoms and education and needle pleating kits, and we've just got a lot to share with people.
Any partnerships with K-12 schools? I came from Portland, where when I taught 7th grade health, I could do condom demonstrations, and I now live in this community, so it's a little different. So I'm curious to know any work with K-12 health educators and administrators.
It happens informally. The formal channels, we tend to get the door closed on us, and so we've got very few staff and not much time. And so I say when a school is ready, bring them to my attention, we'll sit down and have that discussion. But overall, you're dealing with policies beyond just the individual school, but I think you can get a lot done with individual teachers and youth groups and clubs and that type of thing. We connect there.
Just making sure that school counselors and school nurses know of your services, I think, is really important, so they can reference students to your services.
In fact, that's a great idea. Even as we're continuing to roll out the phone app, we might be able to just send a postcard out.
Kentucky School Counselors Association, school nurses, K-FERD, which is a health and beauty group.
Okay, excellent.
Great.
Thank you. Do you have a question? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So I was wondering if you could comment on, some of our representatives are trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act, and also we have a governor who's trying to kick off your walk to expanded Medicaid, what effect will these have on the services in each of
Yeah, I have to be careful how I say this
I know, I
because
don't
I work
know
for a
nonprofit.
nonprofit, but I certainly have an opinion. I would say that, and I said this earlier, is I don't care what we call it. I really could care less what we call it as long as we're providing care and as long as it's accessible. And so I spend a lot of my free time speaking out for affordable, accessible health care. It really does make a difference. If people have regular health care, we can prevent a whole lot of problems that are going to cost us a ton of money later. So I think that it only makes sense, and we just have to be extremely vocal about that, and how people can access it. I mean, there's a lot of barriers, and so how can we tear down those barriers? I have a lot of opinions about that.
As a staff member, what can I do to help my colleagues, my students be better educated about this topic?
You know, I think that the better way now is to start having conversations about the particular healthcare needs of various types of groups, because it's not just HIV, it's other issues. LGBTQ healthcare is a big issue and how we access that and the whole spectrum of that care and what that needs to be. I think HIV has a role to play in that conversation, but I think it's a bigger conversation now, especially because sometimes HIV can shut the conversation down. So there's a way to have a conversation about care in a broader context and probably have a little more productivity with it. But I really do, there's a number of things at Moorhead that I connect with, and I think that this is a place where conversations can take place. I'll be up for the Spectrum show it's either next week or the week after, so I'm just really excited about that. You know, there are places where those types of conversations can happen, and getting more people out to those types of events is really, really cool. And you know, with this van that we have, give us a call. We'll come up and do an afternoon or an evening and do some testing, and you can have a conversation, and it's real easy, and you know, it's free.
Does they all have a connection with our Housing Health Services?
No, but I would love to be introduced there, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
We will make this happen.
sounds good.
Could I ask you?
Sure.
I'm always asking the personal questions because I like to know about people. Obviously, this is a work, it's a passion for you. What was the catalyst? What got you started?
You know, when I was growing up in the 80s, it was something we were afraid of. It was something that made you not want to be gay. I mean, it really was like that. It was just too frightening, the horror stories that we heard. Once I was more comfortable with who I was, I started working in '93 at a HIV prevention program in Lexington. It focused on injecting drug users throughout Lexington and Eastern Kentucky. You know what? There was a lot of work taking place at that time. A lot of the people that you see on the quilt were here, and now they're not. And I walked away from it for a long time. I was tired. I got tired of the topic, and I did a lot of other work, which in turn prepared me for what I'm able to do today, but at the same time I walked away from it. So when I came back to it, it was a completely different world. I came back sad face. I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna have more vigils, and you know, oh no, wait, we got some hope here, you know. But being able to understand that some of the people that I tested in the early 90s who were HIV positive and are still around and doing really well, it was just an eye-opener to me that I had some more work to do. I'm a pretty religious person, so I felt a calling to do a lot of this work as well. And the opportunity at AVOL came up, and I started just to examine myself and my motivations. Because what I was beginning to understand was that when we lose people who are HIV positive anymore, it's not likely going to be related to HIV. It's going to be likely related to suicide or drug abuse, an overdose, or something else. And you know, the world of HIV services just got bigger because we have a whole myriad of issues that we need to be there for. And I saw AVOL as being sort of a kind of a single focus. But I had a vision that AVOL could be, for a lot of people, much more. And how can we bridge and build a bridge for what I call people living on the fringe, how they can access good services. And I knew I could help do that. So I knew that that was right for me. I knew it was right for me. And I haven't been let down one bit. I've been on this job, 2 years and 5 months, but who's counting? I spent a lot of time raising money, so that's really kind of fun because I like to count money for some reason. But at the same time, it doesn't stop me from connecting with the people that we serve. And I feel like AVOL, and I don't know if AVOL has always been this way, but I know that today we want to be an open door and a hospitable, welcoming environment for everybody that walks through that door. Welcome. This is home. And how can we help you? So that's why I'm there.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Sure. Thank you all for doing this. Any other questions? Thank you all very much.